I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Current. Tonight, the Vatican reports that Pope Benedict is considering an amendment to the rules governing the selection of his successor. If the Holy Father does rewrite the instructions, he's likely to focus on the start date of the Cardinals' conclave convened to elect a new pope. Only the Holy Father has the authority to modify the document that sets out the procedures for papal elections. John Paul II wrote the current one, and it declares the cardinals must wait 15 full days from the moment the papacy is vacant before holding an election. But John Paul's timetable was to allow absent cardinals to assemble in Rome. Having been put on alert by the Pope's resignation announcement, they're expected to come to the Vatican before month's end, February 28th, the Holy Father's last day in office. So now news that Benedict may decide to allow the voting to be moved earlier. The reporter for Italy's Vatican Insider, Andrea Tornielli, is writing that the calendar adjustment is a done deal. The Vatican spokesman says he doesn't know if Benedict will actually address the timing of the conclave or issue an amendment. Cardinal Dolan, as we reported on yesterday's broadcast, prefers the 2-week-plus waiting period. And the Holy Father himself remains in seclusion, participating in a Lenten retreat. The timing of the conclave is not the only papal matter up in the air tonight. What to call him, his role in the church, how he'll dress, all questions still to be answered. One of the few certainties, where he'll live.
It's a retirement home being prepared to fit an ex-pope. A simple ex-convent, ideal for prayer and contemplation. A change for a man who for the last 8 years has served as the spiritual leader to more than 1 billion Catholics the world over. And it's a brave new world for an institution where most popes have died on the job. There hasn't been an ex-pope in almost 600 years, and with Benedict XVI just days away from retirement, there are all sorts of details, great and small, that need to be worked out. It's still unclear what his title will be, perhaps Bishop Emeritus of Rome. His public role has yet to be defined. Vatican watcher Giacomo Gagliazzi suggests the best way to avoid problems is for Benedict to serve discreetly as an advisor to his successor. If he's not hidden from the world, he says, he could become like an alternative reigning pope, and that could disorient the faithful who are already disturbed and upset by Benedict's resignation. The papal retirement plan is fairly simple. Reports in the Italian media say he'll receive a monthly pension of €2,500. It's around $3,400. Room, board, and domestic help will be provided by the Vatican. Tailor Raniero Mancinelli has known Benedict for more than 25 years. He explains that the ex-pope will wear a robe along these lines, but a different color. I think, he tells me, he'll wear simple black like a simple priest, busy with prayer and writing books. At least he'll have a room with a view. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Vatican City.
Benedict's decision struck like a thunderbolt. He'll be only the 4th pontiff in all of history to step down from St. Peter's chair. Others have considered resignation but decided to remain. Now news of the Pope who feared being ripped from the Vatican. Pius XII reigned during the Second World War. Worried he could become a prisoner of war, he authored a document informing the College of Cardinals that if captured, he was no longer to be considered the Pope and a new pontiff elected. Pius, of course, remained free and Pope until his death in 1958. Papal historian George Weigel is the author of the best-selling biography of John Paul II. He's also a keen observer of the Vatican and the intrigues inside its walls. Tonight, he warns of the major challenge that faces Benedict's successor and laments an opportunity that was lost.
The expectations that this would be a pontificate in which the Vatican bureaucracy, the Roman Curia, was deeply and thoroughly reformed have not been met. Things are in fact worse now, in my view, than they have been in perhaps 40 years. Everyone who does not have a vested interest in the status quo, understands that a major task in the early going of the next pontificate is going to be not only to change structure, but to change attitude. The Roman Curia exists to give effect to the will of the Bishop of Rome. That's the only reason it exists. If being the universal pastor of the Church means to be an evangelizing missionary, then the Roman Curia has to think of itself as part of that papal evangelical mission, and it has to contribute to that rather than being an impediment to it, which frankly, in some instances, indeed perhaps many instances, it is today. This Curia needs to be thoroughly internationalized. It needs to be detached from what has become, according to one of my Italian friends, a deeply rooted culture of corruption in Italy as a whole, which has a way of seeping over the boundary between Italy and Vatican City. And if the next pope does not wish to take this on himself, which in many respects he probably shouldn't do, it's not the job of the pope to move slots around on an organization chart, but he needs to hire somebody. He needs to have a Secretary of State, a Chief of Staff, or sostituto as he's called here, who can take this on and will have his authority and his backing to do this properly.
Up next, your guide to the conclave, the report designed to help you know what's coming next, as Currents continues after the break. Welcome back. The number of cardinals ready to elect the new pope is dropping. All cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote. On the date the pope's resignation takes effect, there will be 117. But now, word from Indonesia that the Archbishop Emeritus there is too ill to travel to Rome. Also, a Bolivian and an Egyptian may not be well enough to make the journey, which would leave 114 cardinals in the conclave. No matter the number, the burden of selecting the successor of St. Peter is, as Cardinal Dolan says, an awesome one. Just what may happen, what should we expect once Peter's chair becomes sede vacante or vacant? Here now is a guide to the conclave.
As the princes of the Church, only cardinals have the exclusive responsibility to choose a successor to the Pope. As soon as the sede vacante begins, Cardinal Dean Angelo Sodano will officially call all able-bodied cardinals to Rome, but only the ones under 80 can take part in the election.
It's a very small group composed of guys who know one another fairly well for the most part. So it's much more analogous to, say, the election of a department chair in a university.
The start of the conclave has to be delayed 15 days to give all cardinals time to get to Rome, but start no later than 20 days after the beginning of the sede vacante. The Sistine Chapel, where the conclave has to take place, must be sealed off, and the insides checked for any hidden recording devices. For the entire conclave, the cardinals are required to stay at the Vatican's Domus Sanctae Martyr. They have very good service. It's not a 5-star hotel, but it's very comfortable. Cardinals are not allowed to communicate with the outside world or have access to the media. They could be excommunicated if they do. The conclave starts with a Pro Eligendo Papa Mass, asking for God's help in electing the new pope. From there, they'll head to the Sistine Chapel and take an individual oath of secrecy and to not help any outsiders trying to intervene in the conclave. Then they start voting.
In many ways, the voting is the most complicated and time-consuming element of this process.
In order for a cardinal to become pope, he's required to get 2/3 of the votes. On the first day, they'll vote only once, but after that, twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon. There will be a pause for prayer and discussion each time after 13 ballots if no cardinal gets the 2/3 majority. To find out how they vote, Mexico's Cardinal Barragan shares his experience from 2005.
Encima de esa línea, había que poner el nombre.
On the line of each ballot, we must write the name of the cardinal we choose, but in capital letters and in a way that no one can tell who's voting.
No se identificara de ninguna manera quién votaba.
Each papal elector then walks up the altar of the Sistine Chapel, folds his ballot twice, and places it in this plate. After affirming it's his, he drops it into a receptacle. 3 cardinals whose name were chosen at random will tally the votes individually.
El primer cardenal que se encontraba al
The first cardinal on the far left will silently read the ballot. He passes it to the second, who reads it silently. He passes it to the third, who reads it out loud.
sin pronunciarlo. Se lo pasaba al tercero, que lo veía y lo pronunciaba.
The ballots will be strung together using a needle to avoid double counts. 3 other cardinals will double-check the tallies to ensure the counts are correct. And after that, all cardinals will turn in their notes, which will be burned along with the final ballot tallies.
Cuando se quemaba incienso, el incienso
When you burn
produce un
incense, it produces white smoke, and you can call that the fumata bianca. When you burn the ballots where the candidate's name was written, then that smoke will usually be black.
Once a candidate has crossed that 2/3 majority, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, or, of course, what happened last time was the Dean of the College of Cardinals got elected, so it would be the Vice Dean, would come to him and say, do you accept your canonically valid election as the successor of St. Peter? And once he says in Italian, accetto, meaning I accept, then from that moment, he becomes the Pope.
The Cardinal Dean, or highest-ranking Cardinal Bishop, will also ask the newly elected Pope, and therefore Bishop of Rome, what name he would like to take on. The new Pope will change into one of 3 best-fitting white tunics already prepared for his election. After greeting his peers, he then prepares for the apostolic blessing Urbi et Orbi at St. Peter's Square, marking the end of the conclave.
This will be the 75th conclave in the history of the Church, according to the Vice Prefect of the Vatican Library. He dates the first, where cardinals were locked away in a room until they chose a pope, to Pope Boniface VIII in the year 1295. A Vatican delegation is in the Middle East tonight, responding to the refugee crisis of the Syrian civil war. The fighting is approaching its 2nd anniversary, and the emergency needs of the refugees, probably about 1 million people, grows by the day. Cardinal Robert Sarah is heading up the church mission. He's praising the remarkable efforts of Catholic relief specialists, saying their dedication proves that charity is a mission and not a job. But there is a job to do there, saving the innocents, the children caught in the conflict. It's a job that seems never-ending.
The steady flow of man and beast extends as far as the eye can see. Trudging along this old smuggling route between Syria and northern Iraq. Some too young to walk or know why they've left home. Hunger forced them to leave. Syria's Kurds have been spared the worst of Syria's bloodshed, but they are experiencing the same crippling shortages. A man cradling his crying baby turns and says to us, "We can't live. We had to run away." His family made the trip from a Kurdish neighborhood in Aleppo, weaving between front lines. It took them 5 days, most of it on foot. The Kurdish authorities in northern Iraq have made this into a semi-official border crossing, run by their own fighters, the Peshmerga, not Iraqi guards. It's an emergency step, they say, to deal with the numbers fleeing and make it easier for supplies to reach those who have stayed behind. For some, it's a business, packing mules and horses with products bought in Iraqi Kurdistan to sell in Syria, or carrying as much as they can.
Along the side of the road, around half an hour, 45-minute walk from where everyone is crossing, is this small market, and it sells just about anything that they can't find inside or that has become too expensive. Here we've got the stacks of frozen chicken, product of USA. And inside, basic things, lentils, rice, macaroni. They're also selling a lot of candles and these lanterns here too, because of the lack of power in Syria.
Saeed and his friends are determined to tough it out at home in Syria. But 2 years of upheaval have brought rampant inflation and unemployment. There is no work, Saeed says. We can't afford to buy things at the market. So once a week they hike into Iraqi Kurdistan.
So even things like this are in short supply in Syria, your basic plastic pitcher to pour water from, so they've had to come into Iraqi Kurdistan to buy it. In Syria, this costs around $2, and here it's less than $1. And cigarettes, he's bought cigarettes as well.
It's far from your typical shopping trip. They want to show us how they get here. We climb a hill for a better view.
So basically they're forced to take this long winding dirt route. They can't just go straight over because they're concerned about the fact that the lands on either side are actually mined. So the Peshmerga have given them these leaflets warning them about the mines and the unexploded ordnance that exists.
24-year-old Asim's voice echoes through the hills, a song he wrote about all they've had to endure. We don't want death and killing, he says he's singing. We want peace and freedom and security. Peace, freedom, and security. A dream far more distant than these hills. Arwa Damon, CNN, on the Iraqi Kurdistan-Syria border.
Disappointing news tonight regarding the opinions of young American Catholics. A majority thinks the church is out of date on sexuality and that Mass is boring. The survey was of young adults who attended a Catholic church at some point during their teenage years. The results of only practicing Catholics were better, but not great. In order to instill and build great faith within our young people, look no further than our Catholic schools. Tonight, in this week's installment of School of the Week, we visit one of them in Flushing, Queens.
Today we're at St. Kevin's School, and what makes our school so special is that people are very committed to making sure that St. Kevin continues to provide the same type of education and same type of character formation, faith formation that it has since 1939. Of course, keeping up with current practices in education so that we do remain a vibrant community, a vibrant school, and can make contributions to the future.
We have a wonderful Catholic education system here. We teach the children to be God-centered and Christ-centered, and we teach them moral and religious values that are so essential for their life.
Our students are part of this family, the St. Kevin's family. It's something that just happens because of what St. Kevin's is and who we are as a community.
Catholic education not only addresses the academics, but it addresses the complete formation of the individual. And many times you don't get that as part of the educational package. So as a Catholic school, our mission is not only to provide an excellent program in academics, but it's also to educate, help form the entire person, meaning academically, religiously, spiritually, and socially, so that they are ready to meet the challenges of the world using all of their resources, all of their personal resources.
Honestly, the kids and the families have really, really big hearts around here. The faculty, we work very, very well together, which is nice. It's a nice and comfortable atmosphere, which is good.
I just love every day coming in to the school, really giving the children like a celebration of learning rather than just reading, writing, and math.
St. Kevin's inspires me to always do my best. Teachers are always pushing you to reach your goals and go above and beyond the standard.
It's just really friendly. St. Kevin's School is a nice place for kids to come. It's not too big. Everybody knows you. It helps me off to a better start. Helps me be nicer to people, helps me to just care about more people.
I hope to build upon what has preceded me here. We want to expand our academic programs. And of course, we want to make sure we keep up with current trends, current practices in education, technology, as well as provide the students with a religious education that will help them in the other aspects of their lives.
I hope that it will continue to be the vibrant school that it is. Most of all, I'm hoping for an increase of enrollment. That's our main goal, is marketing and recruiting and spreading the good news that St. Kevin is alive and well.
Up next, remembering the Holy Father's journeys to the Americas as Currents continues after the break. During his reign, Pope Benedict continued the commitment to apostolic travel that his predecessor, John Paul II, established. The Holy Father journeyed to 24 countries and made another 30 trips inside Italy. For us, of course, the most memorable are the 2008 visit to the U.S. and last year's trip to Mexico and Cuba, including the Mass with 1 million in Havana. Thank you for joining us tonight. We leave you with the scenes of Pope Benedict and 60,000 faithful at Yankee Stadium. Stay with us for the latest breaking news on the papacy. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good night.